think there's a lot of folks. Oops. I think there's a lot of folks that are excited that we're all doing this work. So thank you for your contributions. Before I kick us off to our agenda, I'm going to turn it over to my wonderful co-chair, Senator Moore, see if you have any opening remarks.
Okay.
Just good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm just looking forward. Hi, Wendy. Looking forward to today's meeting, but thank you.
Thank you, Senator Moore. And today we have 3 presentations by Commissioner Hurlbert on the Food Policy Council. We have Jason, who's going to present on food share, and Mike, who's going to present on the New York legislation. But before we do that, we have new members here. Let's see. Where are they? Brooks, you're a new face, right? We were able to connect with Walmart. So just as a friendly reminder to everybody, supermarket space, as we said in previous meetings, is 3,000 square feet of food retail. So that includes our supermarket chains that many are familiar with. Also big box though, the Costco, Target, but Walmart has its own representation. So we were able to connect with the right folks who are now joining us. And I know we got to you a little late, but we're happy to have you here. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself. We'll start with you, Brooks.
Sure, happy to. Thank you for including us. So Brooks Nelson, I am with Walmart, walmart.org, and I lead our food recovery here in the relationship with Feeding America and Connecticut Food Share. And also we have Eileen Hyde, who's also here, who's a colleague of mine and led this work for many years.
Awesome. And Eileen, I'm looking for you on here. I saw Eileen. Is she on here? Actually, I don't see Eileen. I saw an Eileen come on and then go off. So when
she was
comes
on,
back,
she may have dropped, but
it might be technical difficulties, but we're happy to have you be a part of this. I know we sent to you the links from our previous meetings just so you could catch up and just kind of join in, and thanks for being a part of it. So I think I'm going to kick us right off so that, because we do have a couple of presentations, and Brian, Commissioner, thank you for being here. And we had discussed in our last Food Insecurity Task Force meeting about talking about the work of the Food Policy Council, just so we're not duplicating efforts, but we also all know what each other are doing. So I think if Wendy, if you can give the commissioner co-host capabilities. Do you have a PPT, or is it just discussion? PPT, okay. All right.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me all right, Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Okay. Once I have the ability to share here, looks like all right. Can everybody see that? Okay. Well, thank you. And I just want to make sure, is Kaylee Royston on? She said, she just messaged me that she's having problems getting in. She's our legislative liaison, has been attending these on behalf of the agency.
She might be using the old link. You might want to just remind her that a new link was sent out.
All right, we'll see what if she can join in. She knows all this stuff anyway, so it's really more for Jason's benefit that she'll be here, even if she's a minute late. So first, thank you very much for the time and attention to the work that you're doing, and I appreciate the opportunity to discuss what the Connecticut Food Policy Council is doing and share out that, so that, as you said, Madam Chair, folks aren't duplicating efforts, and we're all aware of the work that's being done through these various efforts. So on the Food Policy Council, we are one of the oldest food policy councils in the nation, one of the oldest statewide food policy councils in the nation. And the mission, as defined in statute, is to develop, coordinate, and implement a food system policy linking local economic development, environmental protection, and preservation of farming and urban issues, to review and comment on proposed state legislation and regulations that would affect the Food Policy Council, and advise and provide information to the governor on the state's food policy, and prepare and submit to the joint standing committees of the General Assembly on any appropriate recommendations concerning food policy. We were established in 1997, and we are, as I mentioned, the only statewide food policy council in Connecticut. The Department of Agriculture is defined in statute to administrate and coordinate. I act as chair of the Food Policy Council, but it also consists of a variety of folks that are all part of the food system. Agricultural producers, organizations, state agencies, and a number of nonprofit organizations. Through the Community Investment Act, we are funded $25,000 on an annual basis. And we hold public meetings on the second Thursday of every month with an opportunity for the public to comment. These are our members, and as you can see, we've got Knox represented from Hartford. They do training programs for new farmers. We have Yukon Extension, grocery stores, food hubs, all of our state agencies, Hartford Food Systems, which does a lot of the outreach and engagement, and we've worked with them on a statewide food policy plan. Over the course of this administration, the Food Policy Council was really not active prior to Governor Lamont. I don't think it had a meeting since 2016, if I'm not mistaken. And we've worked very hard to get these appointments made, to get the seats filled, and to start bringing people in. We've been allocating some of our budget and using those dollars wisely to invest in efforts that support the food system. But we've also done a number of strategic planning sessions and working sessions to make sure that we have an idea of how we are going to accomplish the mission that has been laid out in state statute. So we've developed 4 goals within our strategic plan. Work to increase the use, awareness, and access to healthy food, breastfeeding resources in Connecticut communities. Support local food groups and collaborative work in convening the groups to share best practices, knowledge, resources, and opportunities. Support the creation or continuation of local food policy councils and other community networks. We're recognizing that just some communities may not have a food policy council per se, but they do have other groups that convene that cover this subject matter, and we want to support them as well. And then fund projects that include community-driven solutions to create a more just food system that empowers communities to grow, sell, and eat healthy foods. So it was important for us before we got too far into the program of allocating our dollars to make sure that we knew how we wanted to align our mission and our goals. And so these are what we came up with. The strategic plan also includes programmatic strategy, strategic priorities that we will invest in community-driven projects that will foster relationships and strengthen the food system. Again, a lot of convening here. There's a lot of knowledge in the state of Connecticut, and we are, a state of 169 communities, and sometimes we live in our own little silo, and we want to bring people together, elevate the work that they're doing, and make sure that people are using best practices. And that's, number 2, create spaces for convening local groups to share best practices and resources goes directly to that. Facilitate the elevation of community-driven issues and solutions. Not all of us are aware of everything that's going on out and about. And as you saw, we're kind of a high-level organization with who's there, but it's important that we're hearing from folks and bringing it together. Supporting partnering organizations in the outreach and development of food system assessments. One of the things that we've been doing here in the Department of Agriculture during the Lamont administration is recognizing that we can't do everything, and that there's a lot of really good ideas out there and a lot of really strong organizations. And so instead of trying to recreate a wheel and push forward on a state policy, we've been really working with other organizations that do this work and trying to help support them, invest in them to make sure that they have the level and the platform to reach it. And then support outreach and educational efforts regarding public benefits programs. SNAP, WIC, SNAP doubling, farmers market nutrition programs, those are all strong programs that are state funded. You add in TFAP and our partners at FoodShare and the work that they do. We want to make sure that if anybody is hungry, they know where they can go to receive the support that they need for their family, whether it be enrolling through a DSS program or DPH program or Department of Agriculture program or finding their local food bank or pantry, and helping them navigate that is really important. To that effort, we have released the Food System Capacity Building Grants. This is the first time that the Food Policy Council has actually done any grant work. As I mentioned previously, we are funded through the Community Investment Act because the council wasn't meeting for a number of years. The funding continued to come to us, so we have some money available, and so we wanted to make sure that we're using those dollars wisely. And again, developing our strategic goals, our priority areas, so that we're making strong investments. And then the next step of that strategic planning process was the development of these grants. So the grants can be used to increase the use of, awareness of, and access to healthy food, to support stakeholders in collaborative work, to support the creation or continuation of a local food policy council or any of the other similar groups that address food access and food systems, and support projects that include community-driven solutions to create a more just food system. Those are the four areas that the Food System Capacity Building Grant will cover. The max award is $10,000. The grant application period is open. We are accepting applications. I don't think we've received one yet, but we are accepting them. We'll PDF this and send it over to Samuel, but people can access the grant portal through that link in the third bullet there. Eligible applicants include farmers, nonprofits, educational organizations, agencies, or municipalities. And we strongly encourage folks to partner with any of those in their application. So if there's a group of individuals who have been meeting, a loose collaborative, if you will, they can get together. They don't have to create a nonprofit. They can apply through their town to support, the creation or support or the continuation of a food policy council or some other mechanism to address the food system. It's an 18-month timeline max for these projects. So we want to make sure that the dollars are being used and actually being spent and invested in the community. It's our expectation that contracts will start very early in 2023. In the department, we have moved to turn our grant periods around from grant application period closing to contracting within 3 months to make sure that everybody understands what the timeline is. And then Aaron Wyndham and Serena Thibodeau, who are with our Ag Development Unit, are our staff associated with the Food Policy Council. Anybody that has direct questions should go to them. We will have a webinar for people to ask additional questions, and I can get that information for folks if they're interested in joining that, and we can distribute that out. But essentially, that's where we are with the Food Policy Council in the state of Connecticut right now. I also wanted to share that during the course of the pandemic, the Food Policy Council became a critical resource for folks across the state. We convened not necessarily as the Food Policy Council in an official manner with an official agenda with posted meetings, but every week we were getting together with different state agencies to report out Food Share, Food Bank, to report out what is happening across the state. And we invited folks from all over the state to come listen, participate, again, elevate their concerns that they were seeing, hearing, share out information, guidance documents, the latest direction from the either DPH or the federal government. And generally speaking, we would have between 5 and 6 dozen organizations represented on those calls. It was a great way to use an established council that could convene all the appropriate players to share out all the information that folks needed. And make sure that that they had the resources and the information that they needed to address the concerns in their local communities. With that, Madam Chair, that's the end of my presentation. Happy to answer questions for folks or hand it over to our good friend Jason at Connecticut Food Share.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. That was really good information, very helpful for everybody. And I do have a couple of questions, but I just want to see if there's any other hands up that I don't see. So, I'll go last. I'll defer to Reggie for his questions.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Counselor. I had a few questions. first, where do you find the information that you guys found? Is it like ctfoodcouncil.org or like, 'cause I'm trying to find it and all I'm seeing is it shows meetings, but it says 2 meetings. So I'm not really, is there like a aggregated place for the meetings, the information you got from the meetings, like the work that's been done? Like, is there a place that someone could just like find it?
Yeah,
And if
I
you-
will drop that in the
I
chat.
mean, like, how would I find it if I was like Googling it? Is it just like I mean, is it like actively easy to find for people? So it's not just information on a shelf. Is it like is there intent? Is it being given out? Is it like going down to food councils or what is being used for the information, or is it just like on a website?
Well, I mean, we're presenting the information out, and then we're inviting food councils to participate. Like any meeting, we're doing our best to share out information. We use our ag report. We use the microphones and the amplification that the members have from their respective organizations to get that information out there. And the website, and I can't for some reason I don't see a chat function on mine. But the website is ctfoodpolicy.com, and there's a whole bunch of information there. And then on the Department of Agriculture website under boards, councils, and commissions, you have all of our meetings, minutes, and agendas going back through 2021, related materials, or some other information about the food system that we have, and then the statute that created and guides us.
All right. Secondly, what regularity do you talk to these councils? Because I'm on the Bridgeport Food Policy Council, and I've never I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know you had meetings like all this time. I thought I was just looking on the website. Like, is there do you reach out like to the government? Like who? Like what? Yeah, what regularity do you talk to these towns? Do you talk to like Bridgeport every quarter, or like in general every city every quarter, or every half a year, or every year? Is there
No, I mean we host the statewide, and it's an opportunity for the local councils to join us and share the information. But we haven't done any pre-planned programming to reach out to individual municipalities. I think that would be a heavy lift for this council.
Is it because why would it be a heavy lift? Is there like is it because of capacity? I assume there's not enough members, or
no, not that there's enough members. We have 2 less than FTEs staffing it that aren't funded for this work, and so with the other program responsibilities they have, which is why we do public meetings for folks to participate in. But and again, this is one of the reasons why we're here today, to share out the opportunity for people to participate and engage us through that channel.
would more funding help? Would it be like if there were a bigger staff or some more more regularity? Because I know food insecurity is growing all over the state. It's becoming kind of insurmountable. Would having a 40-hour-a-week person help? Would it be, or 2 or something like that? Would it help with stuff like reaching out to respective food councils and stuff like that?
That's a question I'll defer to our legislative friends.
Makes sense. All right, that's good for me.
Thank you, Reggie. And I'm always grateful when you say legislative friends, because sometimes we're not, we are, but when it comes to funding, those are tough decisions, but it's a very good idea, Reggie, that we need to consider putting potentially more funding behind resources at the state level to help the municipalities. Senator Moore?
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Good to see you.
Good to see you also, friend. So my question was along the line of Reggie also asking how I saw that how do you reach down into community food policy councils or feed into them or vice versa? And it doesn't seem like that might be happening. How about the Connecticut Food System Alliance? Do you work with them? I know I saw Jeff's name on and a couple of other people that are part of it, but I'm just trying to figure out also what Reggie's thinking. How do you link together to disseminate that information down into communities?
So Martha Page is a member. She used to be a member representing Hartford Food Systems. She also attended each of our meetings prior to being appointed by the speaker. And so through Hartford Food Systems, the Food Policy Council invested a couple of years ago now to do work with the Connecticut Food System Alliance and the name of the organization is escaping me now, but essentially the New England Food System Working Group in order to help develop a Connecticut food policy action plan. And they report to us on those activities every meeting we have. There's a standing agenda item where Meg Horrigan essentially talks about what they've been doing with the Connecticut Food System Alliance and how they what they're doing and how we can partner on that work. And you know, it's really critical, and I think we see this in our farm to school program and other programs where there's a lot of activity out there that's happening that's not necessarily state driven as in a state organization, but we don't want to recreate the wheel. And so we partner with the organizations that are out there and make sure that we're sharing the information back and forth so that nobody is ignoring what the other one is doing. And we're not investing in an offshoot that doesn't have the support of the greater community.
So I think you're talking about Food Solutions New England.
Yes, thank you, Senator.
I'm their ambassador for Connecticut. So I'm familiar with that. So you had not been meeting regularly in the past, but is there, going forward, what you're doing, the CIF, is there something going forward that you're doing in the way of meetings that are consistent?
Oh, absolutely. You know, we've been meeting every other month. Basically since 2019, you know, in person previously and now remotely. And you can see that on the website that, you know, every other month we have minutes and agendas posted and we're progressing. It's important, I think, you know, especially as we learned during the course of the pandemic, how necessary it is to share information with as many folks as possible.
And your CIF was an application to disseminate grants. Is that what it was?
No, we're funded through the community investment account. So
Okay.
in the budget, not the community investment fund is what I think you're referencing, which is organized by DECD, right?
Because I was going to say, I didn't see you on the list of being awarded in the CIF. Okay, well, thank you.
But I do think, you know, we should have we should invite the organizers behind the CIF to the next meeting, because I think food system development, food infrastructure, food processing infrastructure would be a great way for the CIF to invest in communities and strengthen our food systems.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you before.
Thank you, Senator. And thank you, Brian. I had similar questions along the lines of the local food policy councils, and it's perfect timing for me because tomorrow I'm hosting a roundtable in West Haven. We're one of the top 10 food insecurity municipalities, unfortunately, in the state. And it's just a great opportunity. We have so many people working on food insecurity. Actually, Lori is going to be attending because she works on food insecurity in West Haven. We have so many folks that are working on some aspect, but everybody doesn't know what each other is doing. So it's an opportunity to collaborate, share with each other, improve coordination, and most importantly, and the bottom line for a lot of these food councils is to get the word out to the residents that are in need where they can get help. If somebody all of a sudden became food insecure, I don't know if in a particular municipality, they know where to start, right? And sometimes people are a little reluctant to put out there in social media, hey, I need food. Where do I start? So I think it's beneficial for every municipality to have some sort of resource that here's where dinners are, here's what this church does, here's where you can get groceries delivered, here's what Meals on Wheels. So I think the local food policy councils are so critical. So I'm glad to hear about the grant. So getting back to how is the information disseminated? How are the municipalities learning about the grant opportunity?
Well, and again, we share this out at the statewide level. We hope that our council members are sharing it out through their networks. You know, they all bring in different organizations and different backgrounds, but you know, it's been shared out through our regular channels, and I'm hoping, expecting that the council members got it out through theirs. And again, you know, not only do we have council members who attend the meetings, but we also have members of the public and different organizations. Some of the United Ways, for instance, attend. So we're hoping that they are carrying the message forward to get that out there. But what you were mentioning, Representative, in the for West Haven, I think, you know, that is exactly what these grants are for. You know, it bring people together, you know, reduce the friction and increase the collaboration, and make sure that everybody's working together and funded. I mean, you know, if a town employee is going to be doing this work and putting people together, that's, you know, work that they're not doing something else at. Or if a volunteer is going to step up and contribute more time, you know, we want to make sure that they're compensated for that, and that they can, you know, they have an anchor to the work that's being done, to ensure that it continues to work.
Okay, great. And also building a website. So that's one of the challenges we've had. I think that's a perfect recipient for the grant. How about if you could send out a blurb about the grant, as legislators, we can push it out to 169 of our towns, right, and our constituents, but also CCM is always a good resource too. CCM has that database of chief elected officials. I think they could also get it out for us as well. And then my other question around the local food policies, do you know of a best practice in Connecticut? Like, is there a model? Is it Bridgeport? Is it New Haven? Is it some of the larger municipalities that have already built a local food policy council?
I don't want to choose any one particular
Oh yeah,
town, or
no,
not
I didn't
choose
want to
one
put you in
town,
that
given
spot, but maybe. But is there?
Well, and that's what we're hoping to do is to elevate the best practices, because they're,
Okay.
you know, especially in communities that have, you know, done some of the organizing where they're, you know, about to cusp beyond the group of dedicated volunteers, and they need a little bit more structure, a little bit more support. We want to help them with that. And they can call Aaron or Serena on our team at the Department of Agriculture and get a little bit of guidance on that. But also for the ones who want to do the next level, who have been meeting, who may have a community foundation that's invested some money in there, and they want to do the next thing or the next project. Recognizing that I don't know that there are very many, if any, food policy councils that are funded through through any sort of government funding, whether it be a town or the state. So there's not a lot of opportunities. So they've got to go out and essentially fundraise for this. And talking about building a website is, not always the thing that people want to contribute to, right? I mean, especially when people know how much food insecurity there is, so they might want to contribute directly to the pantry as opposed. So we're trying to create, the opportunity for that sort of work that's really important in the infrastructure, whether it be the convening or the outreach or the building of materials. So that these local organizations and groups can be free to do the other work that they really need to do to impact the community.
Great, agreed. We're all doing so much work, but if the residents that are in need don't know about it, they're not benefiting. So just to clarify, the $10,000 grant, as we know, is for to help with the Food Policy Council, but you also mentioned the other grants, and those are for are those for community gardens, urban farming, hydroponic farms? So distressed municipalities that may need access to healthy, nutritional food that
So
don't have.
that would fall under this grant opportunity as well. So it could be the creation of a food policy council. Again, going back, and I'll share my screen up here so you can see the different. Oops. The different considerations, increase awareness of and access to healthy food, support the collaborative work to address local food system issues, the creation or continuation of a food policy council. And again, any sort of organization that does similar work. It doesn't have to be necessarily the West Haven Food Policy Council, but it could be a local group. And then support projects that include community-driven solutions to create a more just food system that empowers communities to grow, process, prepare, sell, and eat culturally preferred healthy foods. So if somebody wanted to do a community garden, again, not quite ready for an OSWA grant from the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, this could be their first step and their first investment to do just that. And so, we kind of see this as, the next level up from, people who have donated their personal money and their personal time, help them move to that next level of programming.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Reggie, is your hand up from before, or do you still?
I had some continuation. I was wondering, is this information on the website? Because I just clicked everything. I don't see anything about the grant. So all I'm seeing is the latest thing I'm seeing is from April 2021. Is this is this website updated? Because I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, Reggie, I'm not sure which website you're on, but on the Boards Council and Commission.
The ctfoodpolicy.com. The one that you mentioned earlier, the CT, I'm on that. It doesn't mention it.
It should, and I'll make sure that it is, but we also have, if you Google CT Food Policy Council capacity grants, you should pick that up there.
Oh,
and again, we can't, I don't have the ability to chat, otherwise we could drop the link.
No wonder.
In the
not an issue.
We can have Kaylee distribute that information with our presentation to the group afterwards.
All right, cool. No, it's yeah, that's cool. I had a question in regards to food policy. Are you also doing information gathering? Is that part? Because I'm on the website again, and the data stuff's from the top thing is 2015. So I was just wondering, what is there active data? Is that part of the council, or is it just yeah? What is whatever? Yeah. Do you guys actively?
Reggie, are you looking for statistics, for example, food insecurity rate by town or things like that? Is that what you mean by?
Sure. I'm trying to figure out what information is gathered by the Food Council, because I'm on the website. There's a data thing. It says 2015, 2019, 2018. So I'm wondering, does the Food Council is it, I'm guessing, do you rely on the partnerships for all your information, or is it
yes.
you are? All right.
Yes. And to that effort, we wouldn't do a food insecurity survey. We would use the surveys that currently exist, whether it be through the federal government or the Department of Social Services. They report out every meeting. If you look at on the agendas, the partner report outs. Food Share does a great job of aggregating information and disseminating it. They're funded to do that work, and we use a lot of that information to inform what we're doing. But again, having us recreate it wouldn't be a terrific use of our limited time.
I don't mean recreate. I mean, it says 2019, it's 2022. But I additionally want to see because I hear a lot of information, but I'm on this website and I don't see any of it. So if I Google CT food policy, that's where all well, never mind. I'll ask later, because I'm not finding this. I see it your PowerPoint is amazing. All the information you guys are doing is great, but I'm just worried that no one knows about it because I can't find it. I'm looking at the CT food policy website and it's saying stuff from 2000, April is the earliest thing I can find. I'm on the government site. It said you had 2 meetings this year. So I hear all the great stuff you're doing, but I don't see it anywhere. So I'm not sure how anyone else could see it. Is there an active email blast going out, or yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what's the rule. Well, never mind, you got it. I don't need to keep ranting.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that if we, so Brian, if you can send the presentation, send the links, let's make sure we're looking at the same links. And if those links do not have that information, I think that's a great opportunity for it to be updated, because there's a lot of discussion on making sure people in the community know about what's available and what the benefits are and the work of the Food Council. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. So it's 10 o'clock, so I'm going to move us. Did anybody else have any other questions for the commissioner? We really appreciate all the work that you're doing and sharing that information, and we'll continue to make sure we share it to the communities that are in need. Thank you so much. And then where's Jason? Jason.
Here.
Thank you. You're presenting as well today about.
I am?
Was
No,
that
I
a
knew-
question? Was that a question?
No. Look, I'm
Okay.
sharing
Yeah.
my presentation. I'm ready to roll.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So take it away.
Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you, Representative Boer. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jason Jakubowski. I'm the president and CEO of Connecticut Food Share. Stop me anytime you have questions, or we can save questions for the end. Just a quick overview in terms of what we do here at Connecticut Food Share. We are the Feeding America food bank here for the state of Connecticut. I didn't want it. Look at that. See, they leave me alone with these computers, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm touching the wrong thing. We are the Feeding America food bank for the state of Connecticut. We have 3 locations. Our main headquarters is in Wallingford, right off of 91. We have a satellite in Bridgeport. We have a satellite in Bloomfield. We serve all 169 towns here in Connecticut. And as I always like to say, I don't like to say it, but I say it, there is at least one family that is food insecure in all 169 towns. It is not just something that is reserved for Bridgeport, New Haven, and Hartford. You go to Greenwich, you go to Darien, you go to New Canaan, you go to Union, you go to Sterling, you go to Cornwall. There are people who are food insecure. We, for 38 years, we were 2 separate organizations. Food Share had mostly the northern part of the state. Connecticut Food Bank had the southern part of the state. 2 years ago, the 2 organizations and our boards got together and decided to merge into one organization, which is now Connecticut Food Share. Governor Lamont, Commissioner Hurlburt, along with Feeding America, Connecticut Food Association, and many others were very supportive of this move, and we appreciate their support. As a result of this, we've been able to save significant amounts of money in overhead that we're able to reinvest back into the people that we serve here in Connecticut. Last year, we provided 47 million meals to our neighbors with the help of the entire community. Interestingly, I just got a statistic yesterday. We are right now distributing 400,000 more meals per month than what we were pre-pandemic. It's a staggering number here in the state of Connecticut. I always say the good news is that things are not as bad as they were at the peak of the pandemic. The bad news is we're nowhere close to being back to where we were pre-pandemic. Things are rough right now. As you can see on here, we have local food donors. They donate food to us. We provide that food to a network of more than 600 partner programs and mobile trucks out in the community. And then that food goes to our neighbors. Over the last year, we also started our Farm to Neighbors program along with the State Department of Agriculture as a part of the USDA's LFPA grant program. I will say, I don't think I've said this to the commissioner yet. I was at a Feeding America meeting in Chicago 2 weeks ago. I think we have one of we definitely do have one of the best Farm to Neighbors programs in the country, in which we are purchasing produce from Connecticut farmers and delivering it directly to our pantries. The donation process is somewhat simple. Retail partner determines they have product that's safe and edible, but they can no longer sell. And I do want to point out that in normal times, and I think we're getting back to that level, about 75% of our food is donated from the Connecticut food industry, from grocery stores and other wholesalers here in the state of Connecticut. We would not exist as an organization were it not for those generous donors. They'll contact Connecticut Food Share to arrange the donation, or they'll post the product on our Meal Connect app to be picked up through our retail rescue program. The product is then inspected by trained staff or volunteers. The donation is then accepted or rejected and is moved through our inventory so it's available to partners in order to order. Before our pantries go and pick up their orders at one of our participating stores, before we make a delivery or before we load food onto our mobile pantry trucks, it is inspected, it is checked for quality and safety, and temperature is checked one more time. I cannot emphasize enough, food safety is our number one priority here at Connecticut Food Share. not only believe, but insist that everybody is not only worthy of food, everybody is worthy of quality food. And that's the premise of Feeding America. That's the premise of what we do. And that is behind all of these different procedures that I'm talking to you about here today. The donation process with regard to retail rescue, again, we have trained retail rescue staff, volunteers, and partners that all go, they all have to complete, including volunteers, a regular food safety training. They are all equipped with thermometers and thermal blankets to ensure that the temperature is maintained in transit. Our retail rescue pickups and deliveries are done no more than 30 minutes from the donor's location. And out of our 600 plus pantries here in Connecticut, about 123 of them are partnered with one of our 283 retail partners. And again, we're very appreciative to the Connecticut Food Association and all of their members for all that they have done and they continue to do. We do utilize an app, as I mentioned before, called Meal Connect, where donors can go on, where a store can go on their phone and post available product and say, hey, we have this product available. And then it will ping somebody here in our building, and they will dispatch one of our volunteers, one of our trained volunteers and equipped volunteers out to those particular sites. They will pick up the food, test it, and then bring it to a local pantry. In general, the retail rescue process is that, the food donation, it's set aside at the store for the receiver to pick up. The pickup is handled and trained by our Connecticut Food Share volunteers. Like I said, digital thermometer and thermal blankets are used to check the temperature, and the food is transported to a partner program. We partner with a number of other organizations. We work with Food Rescue US and Community Food Rescue. They're great organizations, both here in the state of Connecticut and nationally. They recruit volunteers, they train volunteers on safety procedures, and they help us with our own volunteers go out to stores and be able to rescue as much as we possibly can. Keep in mind the business model of food banks, and this is not unique to Connecticut Food Share. It's every food bank in America. The business model is that this only works if most of our food is donated. This will not work if we have to go out and purchase food, which is why the relationships with the grocery stores and other retailers here in Connecticut are so important to us and to Feeding America. Here is a example of who some of our retail partners are. As you can see, it's just about everybody. I will say we have a wonderful partners. Some of them are represented on this call. Most of these are members of the Connecticut Food Association. They are wonderful. They have done a great job helping us. Feeding America has national relationships with a lot of these folks, such as BJ's, Stop and Shop, Walmart, Target, Whole Foods, Aldi, Costco, Sam Club, Restaurant Depot, and Fresh Point. We also have local retail partnerships with the locally owned ShopRites, Price Choppers, the Big Y's, the Cumberland Farms, and the Big Lots. Last year, through our direct product donation and the retail rescue program, our retail partners, all of these folks that you see here on the screen, donated 30,129,178 pounds to Connecticut Food Share. It includes fresh product, perishable, and non-perishable. The most valued product that these outlets can donate to us is meat. Meat is extremely expensive, and we are often at the point in which the only meat we can get is meat that is donated by one of these generous organizations. As I said, food safety is of paramount importance to us, how we assess food donations and when we reject them. And yes, we do reject them. We do reject food donations. I have been told, and the line that I have been told by people, sometimes we get criticized for that. And sometimes people will say, well, beggars can't be choosers. I hate that line. I completely reject that. The people that we serve absolutely deserve great food. Retail donations and the retail rescue, they're secured as long as the quality of the product is fresh, you know, when the produce loads arrive at our warehouse, the temperature of the truck is checked along with the temperature of the produce to ensure the produce has been held at the proper temperature. Visual inspection of multiple cases to get a sample of the quality and freshness. Staff and volunteers are trained to look what to look for and how to assess the produce. Spot checks also happen throughout the time that produce is in our cooler to ensure the product is still okay to ship to our agencies. We have a cooler, we have a temperature log in every one of our coolers and freezers here, in which temperature has to be recorded at various intervals throughout the day. We will refuse any donation that is spoiled or of a quality that does not meet our established food safety standards. Our standards follow all of the food safety guidelines established by the State Department of Public Health and our contract requirements with Feeding America. And we apply those same standards to our network partner of programs. So all of the rules that apply to us also apply to all of the pantry, all 600 plus pantries that we serve. We do have very stringent partnership requirements for our network. Not everybody can come in off the street and say, hey, I want to get food from Connecticut Food Share. We have a partnership agreement, and partner programs have to meet these basic standards, such as following food safety standards for the transport, storage, and distribution of food. I'm not going to read these out here. You can see where some of these, where some of the different standards are. Staff and volunteers, not just here at Connecticut Food Share, but at our pantries, have to receive food safety training. There has to be inspections. It has to be stored in a specific area away from chemicals and cleaning supplies. The food has to be protected from contamination. Pests are obviously a major issue. One of our biggest expenses is pest control, to make sure that we don't have any pests in our warehouse, and all of our pantries have that as well. You could see there that there are some very specific temperatures that products need to be stored at. They need to be at least 6 inches off the ground, at least 4 inches away from the walls. These are things I never even knew existed until I came here to Connecticut Food Share. But these are obviously very, very strict requirements, and they're done that way for a reason. There's like I said, thermometers are regularly checked and documented. Refrigeration unit door seals are tight with no dripping or condensation. All of, the question, of course, is how do we ensure that we have compliance for all of this? All of our staff and volunteers, and I want to make that clear. This is not just for our staff. This is for our volunteers as well. Our volunteers who are doing this type of work have to go through rigorous training. They're required to complete, at minimum, an annual food safety certification. And staff whose roles require, also complete a more advanced annual ServSafe certifications. We track product recalls, and we have protocols in place to reclaim and destroy any recalled product. Don't get me started on baby formula. That was a very difficult time at the end of last year. We keep strict temperature logs. We submit to rigorous annual independent audits from AIB. AIB is an independent company that we contract with to come in and audit us. We are also audited by Feeding America. We also complete the annual TFAP audit with the State Department of Social Services, and also which also includes a random sampling of our network partners. We're in regular communication with the Connecticut State Department of Health regarding guidance for programs serving groceries or meals to the public. And our network representatives complete regular compliance audit visits with each member of our network. So not only are we audited, we audit the 600 pantries that we provide food to. How do we engage in public and network education? It's not just about training our folks. It's about how do we get that message out to our partner pantries. We have network webinars and trainings on food dating to help all of our pantries speak to the quality, safety, and nuance of those dates. We offer one-on-one guidance to our different pantries and to our partners to help them meet safety standards, to implement client choice, and to increase the amount of nutritious food they distribute. We also work with them to address the issues with compliance, and we work with them and institute improvement plans. It is with a very heavy heart, and it is very, very rare that we will terminate an agency, but we have done that. And when we've done that, it is because we've offered them corrective action and they just haven't taken it. That's a sad thing to do. It's not something we relish. It's not something we like to do. We will basically, I teach a class at CCSU for the last 15 years, and I always say, you will have to work hard if you want to fail this class. I would say the same thing for our pantries. They have to literally, do nothing in order for us to stop serving them. We also keep our network regularly informed of any of these changes to these guidelines. Obviously, the USDA and at times state government can make changes to regulations. We stay updated on all of those. The end user impact, our philosophy basically here, our mission itself, our board approved mission, is to deliver an informed and equitable response to hunger by mobilizing community partners, volunteers, and supporters. We believe in being welcoming, respectful, responsive, trustworthy, intentional. But people ask why the focus on food safety. Even though our pantries, even though we're not providing prepared meals to our pantries, care must always be taken to give food to the public, especially to populations with a heightened susceptibility to foodborne illness. Donated product is different than retail store product. It is often handled by more people in its lifetime. It is definitely harder to establish that everybody who's handled that has handled it appropriately. And it is also most likely closer to the code date. In the event of an illness, organizational liability is reduced only if you can demonstrate that procedures have been followed to maintain the chain of food safety, which means we are legally bound to ensure to protect food safety and to make every effort to ensure the integrity of the food that we are putting out there. In conclusion, our mission is to respond to hunger here in the state of Connecticut. We do that across all 169 towns. But again, food safety is our number one priority. And we are checked by numerous outside entities, and we check all of our pantries, and including all of the food that we get rescued from various different stores. So that is what I've got in my presentation, and I'm happy to open it up to questions.
Thank you so much, Jason. So much work that you and your team do, and we're very, very grateful for the attention that you pay to food safety and all the guidelines and the strict guidelines to keep our residents safe. And thank you for doing the lion's share of the work in Connecticut. Reggie, you had a question?
Totally. Amazing work, first of all.
Thank you.
I was looking from our last conversation, I was kind of directed that you guys are the ones leading the information and when it comes to like food insecurity in Connecticut. Just wondering, are you currently doing a study? Is there like a baseline being done maybe on pandemic or what's going on? Is there, do you guys have a scope? 'Cause I work in the, I hardly have a scope. Are you guys working on something that more gives a scope of what food insecurity is?
Yeah, absolutely. We're always working. We're always working on something. That's the short answer. About 3 years ago, we created the Institute for Hunger Research and Solutions here at Connecticut Food Share. It's a subsidiary of the food bank that largely does research on trends and best practices in food insecurity. For example, in the early days of COVID, they were the ones that did the research out at Rentschler Field that gave us the conclusion that 73% of people who were utilizing that service at Rentschler Field had never used one of our services before, which was incredible. So the Institute definitely has research that is done. We also work very closely with the University of Connecticut and the Rudd Center. We obviously don't like to duplicate things here in the state of Connecticut, but the Rudd Center at UConn is also a thought leader in research. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that it's not good enough. Let me put it like this. 20 years ago, it might have been good enough to just collect food and distribute food. That's not what we're in the interest of doing now. We need to find out, we need to drill down and find out, who is in need of this food and what are better ways to reach them and what are the best practices. And that was one of the reasons we established the Institute and one of the reasons we partner with UConn and other research institutions.
Cool.
I will say, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to ask off the top of here, do you know what food insecurity in Connecticut is right now? Just because I know it's like 4,900 or 500,000, but it's all from like 2019, 2020. I just want to say like proper amount.
Yep. Yeah, and Feeding America does a lot of this research. Feeding America has a whole research team, and they do a lot of this data collection. We have a research team here too as a part of our institute, and we have a data collection team. Right now, the number that we use is there's about 425,000 people in Connecticut who are food insecure. The height of the pandemic, it was about 550,000. Pre-pandemic, it was probably at about 350,000. I will tell you, these numbers are, like I said, the good news is we're not where we were at the height of the pandemic. The bad news is this is not a time to be cheering in the street and letting off fireworks, because we're in a tough position. The difference between now, and I think all of my friends in the food industry can attest to this, the difference between now and the height of the pandemic is that food sourcing is not as easy as it was. We're having a hard time getting food. We're having a hard time getting, the good, there wasn't anything good about the pandemic, but from our standpoint, the good thing was the government, federal government, and to some extent state government, was flooding us with food, which allowed us to flood our agencies with food. We now have a significant number of people who are food insecure. I could tell you here, our food is coming in one side of the warehouse and out the other. If you look at the clip that Fox 61 did on us last night, the shelves are bare. It's coming in, it's going out. I just got a message from a legislator this morning upset that the pantry in their district is not getting as much food. Yes, that's absolutely accurate. That's happening at every food bank in the country. It's happening at every pantry in America. And if you look at grocery stores, they don't have the same varieties of food that they had years ago. So we need to gear up for a rough couple of months. All of that government assistance that got us through the pandemic is not there anymore. And we're doing our best to keep our heads afloat. We're already over budget in our purchased food line item.
In regards to government assistance, do you think it would help if there was someone dedicated to like straight up food insecurity, like a more a regular thing, or is it all right how it is? If there was like someone 40 hours a week every week to reach out to, who's like working for grants, doing all that, or is it just all right now?
No, I mean, I think one of the best things that Governor Lamont did was, and I see he's not on the call anymore, so I can exalt him as much as I want, was during the pandemic, and I will tell you, and Jenny, my chief of staff, can attest to this, because we were on a lot of the same, the same phone calls with the Department of Social Services. It was chaos in those early days of the pandemic. You had grocery stores doing one thing, and then you had food banks doing another thing, and then you had 169 municipalities doing something, and then 169 school districts. I mean, it was crazy. One of the best things that Governor Lamont did was he appointed Commissioner Hurlburt as the food czar for the state, a dual title that he has had along with Commissioner of Agriculture. He is definitely the right person, and that's probably the right position to put that in. I will say this though, Reggie, here is where the rub is, and this is typical Connecticut. I mean, the charm and detriment of Connecticut is we have these 169 lovely little towns. Yeah. The hard part, it's not as much with state government. A lot of it is with local government. And I will tell you, because I deal with them every day, we have 169 local governments here in Connecticut, and every mayor, first selectman, and city manager is not created equal. Yeah. Some have dedicated full-time staff to there is a full-time 40-hour-a-week staff member in the New Haven mayor's office dealing with food insecurity. Not every town has that. Some municipalities Some municipalities have a first selectman who doesn't even want to admit that there's food insecurity in their town. I mean, so that's the harder thing for us, is dealing with the local side. Some are great, some are not.
So more municipal. All right, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
someone. All right, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I saw Senator Moore, your hand came down. I just want to,
I answered all Marilyn's questions,
yeah. Thank you so much, Jason. And again, thank you for all the work you do. I do have a couple of questions, but before
Go
I
ahead.
do that, I got a couple of notes from folks that are new. They just want to be reminded of who's on the call, and I apologize for that. I just kicked us off, and we've been meeting. This is our 4th or 5th meeting, and I just assumed everybody, because we've been getting together, know each other. But I think also for our public audience, we probably should do just a quick round table, and then we'll get back to questions. So if you don't mind, I'm just gonna say your name and just say who you represent and your role, and that will help those who are watching and help each other. All right, so Cynthia.
Good morning. I'm Cindy Costa. I'm with the Food Protection Program at the Connecticut Department of Public Health. I'm
Thank
here
you,
for the
Cindy.
food safety aspect, so I really appreciated Jason stressing how important that is. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Julia.
Hello, Julia Cajejas, Executive Director of End Hunger Connecticut.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for coming to all the meetings. Brooks, if you want to go again, it'd be great.
Sure. Brooks Nelson with Walmart. I lead our food recovery work. Jason, thank you so much for that presentation. Really appreciate your leadership and also the emphasis on food security. That's why we do partner so closely with Feeding America and all the food banks, is for that compliance and food safety. Also appreciated your comments around Meal Connect. Beyond just donating food, we do provide millions of dollars of investments in the food bank networks, including investing in Meal Connect and food chain capacity. So
Yes, Walmart was the primary funder of Feeding America's Meal Connect app.
So, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Jordan.
Good morning, Jordan Coe, President and co-owner of Waverly Markets. We own and operate 3 ShopRite supermarkets in the Hartford area.
Thank you so much, and gave a great presentation last week on what some supermarkets are doing. Jason, we just heard from Jenny.
Hi, everyone. Jenny Hirsch, Chief of Staff here at Connecticut Food Share.
Thank you. Mike.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mike Siegel. I was the author of the New York law that requires supermarkets to make available food to religious and other not-for-profit organizations that feed the needy.
Thanks, Mike, and we'll hear from you in about 5 minutes. Lori.
Good morning. I'm Lori Martin with Havens Harvest. We're a food recovery organization. We do things on a smaller scale than what Jason does, his big organization. And food safety is definitely one of our primary concerns.
Great, thanks. Senator Moore needs no introduction. She is the great senator from Bridgeport and the co-chair. Virginia.
Good morning. My name is Virginia Venzano. I'm representing the Department of Consumer Protection.
Great, thank you. And thank you for continuing to come. Leanne.
Hi, I'm Leanne Reynolds. I'm the Resource Connection Director at the Sterling House Community Center in Stratford.
Great, thank you. Reggie.
Reggie, he, him. I'm a founder of Bridgeport, a series of community refrigerators around Connecticut. With Lori, we help bring up the HB 5146, and I do a bunch of mutual aid around the state.
Great, thank you. Wayne.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Wayne Pesh with the Connecticut Food Association. Nice to see everybody today.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks for coming. And then Wendy and Samuel are our administrative support team. Thank you very much for keeping us going. Jason, just a couple of quick questions for you. There's 600 pantries. Is there any gaps in Connecticut? Where's the biggest gap where we don't have pantries?
No, absolutely. I mean, there are gaps. We actually, one of our research team prepared what we call the a meal gap analysis here. See, it's even, I always keep it right on my desk. And this is I'm not expecting you all to read it on the screen, but it is our meal gap analysis of all 169 towns. It uses formulaic in a formulaic equation that takes into account the number of pantries, the number of other types of distributions, and the number of people who have signed up for SNAP. And then it ranks all 169 towns based on where the gap is. So 1 is bad, 169 is good. Senator, you will be very pleased to hear that Bridgeport is 169 out of 169. So we definitely do per capita. We do the best job of closing the meal gap. It means that there's a lot of services in Bridgeport, and there's a lot of people that are donating, and a lot of people that are there to help in Bridgeport. Number 1 is Waterbury. Waterbury, I could tell you, Waterbury, Stamford, Norwalk, West Haven, Bristol are the top 5. New Haven, New Britain, Groton, Manchester, Greenwich are the next 5. Those are the areas in which we believe there is more need than what is being met on the ground in those communities.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. If you can send that to me, I can send
Yep.
it out to the group. That'd be awesome. And I'm going to get back to those gaps because that's one of the purposes of our task force. So then my other question on the pantries, does food that is the excess food that is available from the supermarkets in Connecticut, does that stay in Connecticut?
The excess
The
food
The
from
food that comes from the Walmarts, the BJ's, the supermarkets, does it stay in Connecticut? I know you are the recipient of a large portion. Does any of that go outside of Connecticut?
I mean, I can't recall any instance in which it hasn't. I don't know of any stores. Again, I can't speak for every store that is along the New York border, but I don't know of any of the retail stores that we collect from, or any of those chains that provide anything outside of Connecticut. Again, there may be some along the New York border that might give something to Westchester County, but they're not supposed to. I mean, under the contract with Feeding America that most of these stores are bound by, they need to give to the Feeding America Food Bank in their state. So I have never heard that as a major problem or issue.
Great, thanks.
Yeah,
Wayne could probably add to that.
I would, I would say no. I mean, we're hyper local, right?
Yep.
So we are hyper local. Anybody who comes in from any local organization outside of the food share network is coming into our store from right around the corner from where we operate. So I've never been asked that question, but my gut reaction is to say, I don't think so.
Yeah,
that would be shocking.
And by the way, that works the other way too, Representative Borer, is that we definitely are not getting a plethora of food from supermarkets and food distributors out of state. We are in a geographic disadvantage here in Connecticut compared to most other food banks in the country. We do not have a Tyson chicken plant here in Connecticut that can give us their overruns. So yes, I mean, it goes both ways. It very much, think of it as like a fence around the state of Connecticut.
Okay, that it was just a question that came up in 2 meetings ago. So I just wanted to clarify that for our audience. And then my other question is, I want to talk about the supermarkets because that was the original impetus of the legislation, right? And of this task force was to improve the donations from the supermarket because it was identified by the local community organizations that there were gaps. And we know that, the slide that you had with all the brands and all the supermarkets that are giving, but it's not consistent. I think that's the challenge we have, right? So if I go to, and the local organizations will be able to chime in because they're the ones who came to me originally and said, we have gaps, we need to do something. I think if you take a franchise or a chain, there's some stores in those chains that are very good and some that are not giving at all. And that was one of the issues that we had. And that's one of the things that we want to try to solve for, to make those supermarkets more comfortable and to get the message out to them about how critical of an issue it is in their neighborhood. Right?
Yeah, and We definitely understand that, and dealing with so many, it's like dealing with multiple versions of the same product. A lot of our, Feeding America has a national relationship with a lot of these chains. We have a strong relationship with a lot of the ownership of some of the more locally owned places. But especially for more of the national chains, I'll be the first to admit that even when there is that buy-in at the corporate level, at the CEO level, it doesn't always trickle down to the store. So there are some places which are more successful than others, which is why, by the way, we have a team of 5 staff members whose job it is to be out there and have those relationships with the store manager. Have there been times in which a store manager or a produce manager in a store has given us a hard time about donating something, and then we've had to call the regional manager, and the regional manager always says, yes, absolutely, we have to, we're definitely giving it to them. So I'm not going to pretend that there's not differences between stores. I will say, and again, maybe Wayne or Jordan have a better handle on this. There are definitely most of those supermarkets and most of the brands that I had put up there, they themselves will specifically self-select to only give to a Feeding America food bank. And that is not, unique to Connecticut. You think you see that across the country.
Okay, so that is something that we can talk about in our future meeting. How do we, because I understand that, right? They know that there's strict guidelines. They know food safety protocols are in place. They know that they're established. So we need to just talk about that, further at our next meeting. And the only reason I'm saying our next meeting is we're at 10:44. Our meetings last till 11. And I want to give Mike the opportunity to talk about his New York legislation, because we had to bump him at the last meeting. Sorry, Mike, and thanks for your patience. And just a friendly reminder to everybody that we have 3 more meetings left. So the next meeting, we will continue with the information gathering. And then the last 2 meetings, we really need to start honing in on, we've all been taking notes on where these gaps are, so that we can talk about what future legislation or what we can do as legislators or together as a group to improve and address food insecurity in Connecticut. So with that, Mike, do you have a presentation, or do you just want to discuss?
I think Samuel has sent around the New York law.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I'm not cyberspace quite enough to have a presentation. So I will give you a very short oral presentation, and I will keep it under 15 minutes. The background is that the New York law is modeled after the French law. I met with the legislator that drafted the legislator in the French Parliament that drafted the French law, and then I adopted what I learned from him to U.S. legislative form, because I drafted legislation both at the federal and at the New York State and at local levels before. As I drafted it, the New York law is simple. Supermarkets make excess edible food available to food relief organizations, which in the New York law is defined as religious organizations and other nonprofits that feed the needy for free. The only requirement is so that there's no finger pointing, is that the supermarkets are obligated to make this excess edible food available to food relief organizations, which have requested in writing that they be able to collect the food. The sole purpose of the New York law is to increase the availability of the supply of edible food to food relief organizations. As Jason said, the food relief organizations heavily rely on donated food. Otherwise, the system doesn't work. And the New York law does so as simply as we could make it. The supermarkets make their own decisions as to when to dispose of food. And different supermarkets will have different standards as to when they do that. There's no redesign of the existing system of food distribution to the needy. As you heard from Jason, it's a very rational and rigorous system that we have, and that's throughout Connecticut, and I think generally throughout the country. And there's no redesign of that system. It is simply getting more supply into the system. All federal and state laws and regulations regarding food safety and all federal and state laws regarding consumer protection remain in place. There is no new cost to supermarkets, and supermarkets might even save a little money by not having to pay someone to come and throw away this food into a landfill. In New York, the cost is about Jordan would know more about Connecticut. In New York, the cost is about $100 or $110 a ton to take it to landfill, is what I've been told. There's no new allocation of state money that's required for the New York law. There are no reporting requirements that are imposed upon supermarkets. There's not even governmental cost of enforcement. The real enforcement mechanism is a threat of a local Channel 12 news showing up and publicizing why a supermarket is throwing away edible food into a landfill when it could be used to feed the needy. The New York approach is very consistent with advice that you heard last meeting from Jordan, that she in a presentation said something that is doable and has minimum complications. The law passed in France, it passed unanimously in the French Parliament. In New York, it passed overwhelmingly. I think there were only 2 negative votes in the Assembly and about 12 in the Senate. During the legislative process in New York, no one expressed any opposition or said there was any problem. As far as I'm aware, I'm not perfectly sure, but as far as I'm aware, no problems have arisen in New York since its adoption. A couple of local churches and local not-for-profit food organizations have run across a situation where some local supermarket managers not heard of the law. And this is consistent with what Representative Boris said and what Jason said. You know, sometimes the word just doesn't filter down as the corporate policy. And then as soon as the food relief organization, or in a couple of cases I know of, Tom Abernathy, who was a New York State Assemblyman, called him up and told the supermarket manager about the law. In a day or two, the food starts flowing. That really is the presentation. I'm happy to answer, any questions. It's, like in many things, this is probably not perfect, but its sole aim is to get more food into the system so that Jason and others can do the good things they do.
I'm not sure if I've missed anything. Has anybody forwarded that around so that we could take a look at what that New York law is? I'm missing something because I don't think I've seen it.
I sent it to Samuel, and I'll be happy to send it to Samuel again, and he can re-forward it. It's 1 page. It is a very simple law. I mean, as I said, I met with the French legislator that wrote it, came back, and I wanted to make this as simple. And even though I never had heard Jordan's presentation before, do it really what she said. It's doable. It's not telling the supermarkets what to do. It's it's when they decide to throw it away. It has minimal complications, and it's a simple 1-page law. I'll send it to Samuel again, and he can redistribute it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I missed it or not. I apologize if it was sent already. I just have not seen it.
That's okay. I'll get it around. I'll get around to him this afternoon.
Thanks, Mike. Mike, what was the feedback from the legislators that passed the law? Was it widely supported? Was it bipartisan?
Yes, it was absolutely bipartisan. As I said, in the assembly there were only 2 negative votes out of, I don't know, it's roughly 150, and in the Senate there were, I think, 12. It was widely bipartisan. Now, one of the things that you hear said sometimes, I don't want to get into politics, but one of the things you hear said sometimes is, oh, we don't want to create a mandate. Now, that's really a false, in my opinion, because, mandates have this political connotation these days. That's kind of a false analysis, because the supermarkets are putting the food on the back dock anyway. You're not telling the supermarkets what to do. They're putting it on the loading dock in the back anyway to get picked up by a carting company. So it's only a question of who picks it up, whether it gets picked up by a food relief organization that does something good with it, or whether it gets picked up and gets put in a landfill where it does the wonderful thing of creating poisonous gases. So it's not an accurate description to say this creates some mandate. And so I think, at least in New York, it went through on an absolute bipartisan basis. And there was as far as I know, there was no legislator that got on the floor and railed against the law. There was no opposition that I am aware, and I'm 99% sure if there'd been opposition, I would have heard about it. Jordan, you have a question?
I do, and I'm not sure if it's partially for you and partially for Jason. I would like to understand better what the barrier seems to be for the organizations that are not donating. I'd really like to understand, maybe from both of your perspectives, because I'm sure they might be different. Is it lack of awareness? Is it refusal? Is it they don't feel they have the resources to organize it?
Would you
Feel it's a need? I just
there are two that I'm aware of. One is one chain, Key Food chain in New York. Yeah. They used to donate, and then they stopped because their insurer told them either to stop or the premiums were going up. Now, in what Senator Moore and Representative Borer passed earlier this year, that you guys dealt with in Connecticut, because you said an insurer can't do that. An insurer cannot refuse to cover this potential liability. So you've dealt with that in Connecticut. The other thing I've heard of is simply what the first one you mentioned, Jordan, which was lack of awareness. People just don't know. And then the examples I know, I don't know who owns Acme, but that has been a store that I've heard three Acme stores, Jordan, have had problems. I don't know if it's a corporate issue or what. I don't know if Acme's in Connecticut or not.
Yes,
But
they are.
okay, but I don't know. Okay, well, I don't know you may have a different feedback of Acme in Connecticut, but in New York, I've heard of 3 stores. There were initially problems, and then Tom called them up, and his local assemblyman in Westchester, and that got cleared up. In one case, 2 cases, Tom called him. Paul Feiner called him, who's the local town supervisor. But that's it. It was just aware. One was insurance, and it was awareness. I've never heard that anyone had a structural problem within their organization. Now, Jordan may have different response, but that's what I know.
That's
Yeah,
very
can
helpful.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jordan.
Sorry,
ahead,
that's
Jordan.
very helpful, Mike. Thank you. From your perspective, Key Food is a co-op, kind of how we are. So I'm interested. That's a very interesting thing to hear, because and we do have them in Connecticut. And I know who the president is of that co-op, at least that particular arm of it, but those are also most of them are individually owned and operated. So that's interesting. Wayne, maybe you have something more on the Acme.
Yeah, no, Acme runs a couple different banners in the state. I think there's 1 or 2 Acme stores, and then they also run down in Lower Fairfield County as Uncle Giuseppe's. But certainly we can fill in any gaps if there's a problem there. I just had one other question regarding the New York law. What did the New York law do that is versus what we're doing today? So how is that different than our particular processes that we utilize today, whether it's you know, the first thing is to donate product. The second thing is either to compost it or send it to an anaerobic digester. And the last thing we want to do is put any product out that goes that is in a landfill. So I'm curious as to.
Well, simple, it's a good question, a simple answer. It's at level 1, at the donation level. In New York, prior to this law, it was dealer's choice. A supermarket could or could not donate. Now, I mean, a huge portion is, as many people have said, as you said, and Jason says, huge portion voluntarily donate. But for the group that does, and I said to say small, but I don't really know. I don't have any statistics on this. But for the group that did not voluntarily donate, now they got them. When they're going to throw it away, they got to let a food relief organization, a religious organization. A lot in Westchester, for example, is done by the local churches. You know, they got to let local churches or got to get, you know, the Westchester Food Bank come pick it up. Even if they did not, even if like Key Food, they had stopped doing it because the insurer told them, stop it or your premium is going up, or even if like in the couple Acme stores, they weren't aware of it, they now got to become aware and they got to make it available. Whatever they decide, whatever they in their own business model decide to throw away, they got to let a food relief organization that wants to pick it up, pick it up. Now, the New York law also provides, you know, there's no requirement that they make a particular quantum of food available or anything like that.
Right.
It's whatever they decide to, whatever they're doing in their own businesses, because I'm sure you know better than I, different supermarkets are going to have different standards about when they dispose of food. And so.
Yeah, and I could just to piggyback on that and to answer your question there to Jordan. I mean, from our, I mean, I don't know of, I mean, I don't know of any place that we've sent somebody out to and has ever, I don't know about ever, maybe ever is a long time, but has sat there and said, no, we are not donating any product. I mean, I don't know of anybody that has drawn a firm line in the sand. Our 3 largest food donors are Stop and Shop, Big Y, and ShopRite. I could tell you from my perspective here at Connecticut Food Share, we have no issues with any of them. Again, even in an instance in which a store might have had some, you know, the store manager might have been new and not known what's going on, that always gets corrected. There are definitely some local, maybe more family-owned stores that prefer to donate locally. But the question that you had asked, Jordan, was what is the reason given? The reason that somebody wouldn't donate to us is either it's too far to donate to deliver the product to us, or the most common answer is, well, we give to our local pantry, which from our standpoint is wonderful because none of the 600 pantries that we service get 100% of their food from Connecticut Food Share. They're also getting it from many of the stores and retail places as well. So it's not uncommon for some of the smaller, maybe family-owned, non-national chains to want to donate not to Connecticut Food Share, but to Pantry X within their particular town. But I mean, I could tell you, yeah, I mean, that's usually the biggest excuse not excuse. That's usually the biggest reason that's given that somebody isn't going to donate to us.
Let me be clear. I didn't mention this earlier, but Jason raised the issue about delivering. Under the New York law, there's no requirement that the supermarket deliver. There's no requirement the supermarket have any particular quantum. There's no requirement that the supermarket deliver. The food relief organization has to come and pick it up. And the supermarket can impose reasonable restrictions so that the process of picking it up doesn't interfere with their business. I mean, if a supermarket said, hey, we don't want you coming picking up on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, that would be a reasonable restriction because they're doing other things on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So we tried to make this as least intrusive to the supermarket's operations as possible, while reserving all federal and state laws and regulations, but getting for whatever reason, if a supermarket's not making food available to feed the needy and putting in the landfill, saying, no, if someone wants to come pick it up, you got to let them come pick it up and feed the needy. Reggie, you got a question for me? You
Sorry
muted.
about that. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I talked to some people. Sorry, I was like, I'm in like 4 meetings at once, so I'm all flustered. Yeah, I had a question in regards to infrastructure. I think that was that was a question. Infrastructure. I remember talking to, I think I talked to someone from your staff, Jenny Gold, I think her name was, Jeannie Gold, something Gold. Because last year we were trying to repeat the bill. The conversation was that the bill was like, and I talked to people from San Francisco and similar bills. The conversation always came up that there's a problem with infrastructure. Is there infrastructure in mind? So like, I understand the bill says what it says, but who makes sure like places are following what the bills say?
Well, first of all, I don't know. The name you mentioned doesn't ring. I don't. I'm just me. And so I don't know who you talk to, but I don't. There's no enforcement mechanism in this bill. The government does not have to allocate government resources to enforce the bill. Listen, when I was a practicing lawyer, we was in a little institution called J.P. Morgan Chase, and they lent money to a hospital in Brooklyn as a bright idea that some young banker had, that we were going to get a lien on dialysis machines. And, you know, we said, well, we don't know that you're ever going to practically foreclose on a dialysis machine, but we create a lien on it. So they made this loan secured by dialysis machines. And unfortunately, as a big hospital, oldest hospital in Brooklyn, it still continued to fail. And they were wheeling out dialysis machine, taking it off of patients and wheeling out the dialysis machines. Someone called up the local channel 12 News, and they showed up with, you know, the little trucks with the cameras and all, and this stopped in about a half an hour. You know, the enforcement mechanism is there's potential of calling channel 12 News. So that's really, and you don't have to, and you know, and we've never reached that in New York. It's always been a phone call. I had phone calls by an assemblyman or a local town or the local town supervisor solved it. No one seems to be against this. It's just some people don't know or have been told by the insurance company they shouldn't do it. But you've solved that in Connecticut with the bill you passed so far. Senator Moore, Representative Bora.
Yeah, it's not clear. I'm going to follow up on Reggie's always in my head, and I want him to get out of it. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand who, you know, when you talk about enforcement, I'm talking about who has the ultimate responsibility to make sure this takes place.
We did not get the government involved. It has not been a problem. I mean, it's a logical.
Somebody has to be responsible to make sure things are happening and it's rolling out. Who's doing that in New York?
Well, I mean, you know, you obviously you can do it any way you want to do it, but we tried not to impose additional cost on the government, and it hasn't been a problem.
But you still didn't tell me who's taking it on. I mean, like there has to be some coordination of efforts for anything that we do. It has to fall. If anything that we create in Connecticut in the way of policy, it has there's some government agency. And Cynthia, I know you're there, and some other people from the state of Connecticut. Someone has to be responsible for this. We just can't enact the law and then leave it willy-nilly. Well, somebody has to be held accountable for it getting done, and anything that happens.
Yeah, I'll send around the law again. It's one page. You will not find a reference to a government agency in here. And it works. That frankly was the eloquent simplicity of this law. And that's why one of the things that we were sensitive to in New York is not creating cost for the government, either direct cost or indirect cost by having government resources having to administer it or enforce it. And you know, obviously Connecticut will do it any way they want to do it, but it was not found necessary, believed to be necessary in New York, and it's worked without that being necessary in New York.
Okay.
I-
I'll speak with Representative Borer along the line, but
I'll see. One other comment I would make is, now, what Jordan does is levels up from what the New York law requires. And I remember Jordan saying that one of the things that would help them a heck of a lot would be if they could get some generators, but they cost about $350 a piece to deal with storage. One of the things I had thought about that to go into a law would be to say, have a minimal law that says, if you ain't doing this, you got to do it. But if you reach certain standards based on the type of things that Jordan's markets are doing, then you might be able to access this $10 million that you put in the bond to use into this type of system, such as for generators to protect against food storage. Now, that would be an add-on to what we have in New York, because I know Representative Borer has emphasized several times that you dedicated $10 million in the bond issue. And this law is very simple. His sole thing is to kind of, as y'all have said several times, talked about gaps, is to fill in the gaps and just get more food into the system if it's not already happening. But there are obviously things beyond this minimal law that could be done, and maybe you could reward people for doing more than the New York law does, and having that as a standard for using some of that $10 million to improve the infrastructure to keep the food available. Representative Borer?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, Senator Moore, are you good?
yes, thank you.
Okay, all right. And Reggie, I'm going to unfortunately ask you to hold that thought only because we're past our time and I want to be cognizant of everybody's time so everybody comes back. But Mike, this has been really insightful and thank you for your work on this. To Reggie's point, I think we do need to continue to talk about the infrastructure. And that was one of the challenges with the bills. Not only was there opposition to a mandate, but folks said, how are we going to tell more supermarkets to donate and donate more unless we make sure we have the infrastructure in place to handle it and store it, et cetera. So that is one of the challenges, and we'll continue to talk about that at our next meeting. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. Our next meeting is going to be November 17th, and we will send out that updated calendar and the Zoom link for you. And again, we're on a bit of an aggressive timeline because we want to round some of this out. And the reason we only have a few meetings left is because, you know, hopefully if Marilyn and I are reelected, right, we're going to be back.
Listen, if I just vote for me, I'm in.
Yes. So the great thing is both Senator Moore and I are unopposed. So I always say that to be polite, but we will be back. And January we'll be starting to kick off our session. It's a long session. So as soon as the election is over, everybody starts to put their legislation in, and we want to make sure that ours is a priority and is at the front of the line. So that's why we have this aggressive timeline. And we will work to make sure we meet it. So thank you everybody for joining, and look for our next meeting invite, and we'll catch up with everybody then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Simplicity of this.